Well, hello, everybody. It's great to be together today. I want to officially welcome you all to our third community of practice with the California Early Math Initiative. So a big and very, very warm welcome to all of you. My name is Paul Reimer. I'm the director at Ames, along with my Ames colleagues here and others who are joining us from the Early Math Initiative. We want to thank you for being here with us today to share this time together to continue our learning. And one of the things that our Ames team has been talking about already this morning is how quickly 2021 seems to be going by. We're already at the end of March, and so we're about a quarter of the way through the year. So all of those New Year's resolutions or goals or things that we hope to accomplish in 2021, time's not up yet. We've got more time, but we do have certainly some road behind us. And so we want to, again, thank you for being here to share this time with us. And we're going to go ahead and kind of get things kicked off here and get things started up. If you are joining us again on Zoom, of course you are, but if this is one of the first times that you've been with us, I know a variety of our teams have different folks showing up. We're so glad to have you. A couple things, we appreciate everyone keeping microphones on mute when you're not speaking, just to avoid any background noise or distraction. But then we also do really encourage your participation in our time together. In what we have going forward. We're excited about our time together, and we're going to go ahead and get started. So I'd like to just begin with a little bit of an overview of what we have planned today. So I'm going to kind of just present a bit of our agenda for the day. So I'll go ahead and begin my screen here. So today we're excited about our time. We're going to have an opportunity to check in and to welcome everyone, and then to reconnect a bit as well. 1:15 will shift to what we affectionately call hands-online. If you remember back to some of the first experiences we had together as a group at the Ames Center in Fresno, there was a lot of hands-on, a lot of interacting with each other, interacting with materials, a very engaging way to learn together, one that we very strongly believe should be a part of early childhood math education programs. They be very hands-on, constructive, engaging, and stimulating, interacting with materials and others. So we hope to do that again together. We know that some of the best experiences that we can share together as a group involve learning together, where we're all engaging in activity and engaging in ways of learning and thinking together. After that, we'll take a brief break, and then we'll have an opportunity for some choice breakout groups in which we'll be thinking about ways to move forward together. And so from the 2:30 to 3 o'clock time, you'll be able to choose a session that you'd like to attend and engage in some conversations and dialogue with colleagues, going deeper into one of the aspects of our work together. And then finally, we'll do a bit of a conclusion at the end, briefly summarizing our time together, having a few announcements, and moving forward together. So just to begin, I'd like you to get prepared to use the chat today. And one of the things that we'd like to do is already at this point, at the end of March, to stop, to take a deep breath, and to think about a success or a rewarding experience that you've had so far in 2021. And I'd like you to think of one word that represents that experience. So I'll give everyone a moment or two to sort of think through what that word might be. And then when you're ready, what we're going to do is we're going to open up the chat on the side. So you open up the chat. I'm going to have everyone put in their word, but don't hit submit yet. Don't hit enter just yet. So far in the chat, we have Joan Joan, thank you for the wonderful welcome for the Math Magicians, which I think we all are. That's so fantastic. So what we're going to do is everyone will put their word that represents a rewarding experience or a success that they've had in 2021, and you can type it into the chat, and then we're all going to hit send or enter all at the same time. And this is sort of called a chat fall. It's like a kind of a waterfall of responses. And that way we'll get to sort of celebrate some of these experiences together. So give everyone just another 10 seconds or so to put your word in the chat. I've got mine in. Okay, and then at the count of 3, or I'll do a 3 count, and then we'll all hit enter or post at the chat all at the same time. Okay. All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1, post. Oh boy. Oh, that was fun. Okay, now we're going to go back and scroll up and see some of our one words. And if you didn't quite get on time, don't worry. Put it in there afterwards. We're happy with it. There's a lot of joy and collaboration, and some engagement and health. Super important. Commitment. Here. I love it. Experiences. Love. Calls. Lots of calls. Motivating. Hopeful. Self-care. Super important. July. So Selena's thinking, oh, July, maybe, if I'm interpreting that right. Oh, if we can hold on till July. Flexibility, happiness, health, more joy and more self-care, move. Wow, fantastic. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I hope that this can be a space where we're able to build on that and we're able to reconnect in valuable ways. 2021 so far, for some of us, has not been a whole lot different than 2020 at this point. We are beginning to see hope with vaccination rollouts statewide. We're beginning to see some return to in-person contact and involvement in some of our local schools. And so we recognize that this is a period of transition, and it's not without a continued challenge and sometimes stress and sometimes difficulty. But we do want to take space during this time that we share together to reconnect around some of the successes and the rewards that we're experiencing at the same time, and to really allow those to fill us up as we move forward together. So I think at this point, I know that we had just a couple more people joining us, which is fantastic. We're going to get prepared for our breakout groups. And one of the things that we'll do for this next hour is we will move into our region groups. So if you're in the North region, if you're in the Central, if you're in the Southern or the Bay Area, we'll have you select that. So we're going to do that again today with the choice breakouts. So in just a moment, Chris is going to go ahead and open up those breakout rooms, and then you'll be able to select that. And you'll be able to do that by looking on, and sometimes on your menu bar, there's a little 3-dot button that says more, and sometimes you do need to click that in order to get more options. But then you'll see a click there for breakout rooms. And once we get these opened up, you'll be able to select the breakout room that you'd like to attend. So we're going to go ahead and begin those now. So that's opening up, and we're going to move into our hands-online session for today. We'll give everyone a few minutes to go ahead and get into that right breakout room. If you have any trouble, just sort of linger behind, and we'll help you get where you need to go. So we're going to move over into the breakout room for hands online. We'll see you all back here afterwards.
All righty. Did everybody get a community of practice little bag with some goodies in it?
Did you get yours?
Yes.
Did you get yours from Liz, Paula?
Yes, I got a box full of stuff.
Yay.
Yay. Well, if you haven't done so already, you can open that bag.
But there's like 4 bags in here.
It should be community of practice 3.
3.
Yeah. And we're going to need that. So inside, and I'm going to do a little share here. Inside, you should see these things. There's a little cylinder, a small piece of styrofoam, a little cloth, and then a box of some kind. Your box might not look exactly like mine. The only purpose for the box is to just have a larger rectangular prism of some kind. I know when we got these, we got several different kinds of boxes. Clearly they're from either some kind of dollar store or clearance place, because mine, if yours is like mine, it looks like it's a graduation box of some kind from 2008. So,
Yep.
and it might be 80, but I think the hat would be upside down, and that would make it really old if it was 80. That's even from before.
Hey, that's the year I graduated, so
Okay,
careful on me. That's really old.
I graduated in 85, so I'm not too far off from that. Yeah. All right. So if everybody has those things, we will start. Let's see. Now I want to. Even after all this time, I'm still trying to make this as seamless as possible. Oh, there it is, the new share. So now I want to share.
Interesting object.
There we go. So are you seeing some slides now?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to do a little activity called Guess My Design. And Guess My Design has to do with these materials. So I think everybody said they had these. If you don't, or if you just want to do this with somebody else or in another online experience, or maybe even with some students, there's nothing magic about these particular objects. You can do this with a wadded up piece of paper and a pencil, just three of something or 4 of something or any number of something. But we just kind of wanted everybody to have something similar. So that's why we sent those things out. So we're going to talk about spatial reasoning, and I'm going to give you just a moment to read that quote from the National Research Council about what spatial reasoning is. So read that for a moment. And how about when you are ready, call out something that kind of jumps out at you.
That it's not a single process, that it's kind of a combination of all these different factors coming at you.
Mm-hmm.
The thought of it being mentally or physically in space.
Mm-hmm.
Location and movement.
Yeah. I was even struck by the idea that it's not just objects, but it's ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And really a lot of spatial reasoning, it is in relationship to ourselves. And certainly as young children, begin to develop a sense of self and themselves in space. That's
Mhm.
where spatial reasoning really begins. In fact, I did a presentation at the kindergarten conference in the Bay Area a couple of years ago, and we were talking about spatial reasoning, and I asked the question, when does spatial reasoning begin? And after getting some different answers, I showed a slide and it was a whole bunch of pregnant moms. Like that's
Yeah.
really kind of where it begins.
Very beginning.
So even though a baby may not have a concept of what's outside, they definitely know that there are things inside and there are things from somewhere else. All is part of spatial reasoning. So, all right, great. So there's different types of spatial ability. And again, trying to avoid reading to you. Read through that list and see if there's something that kind of jumps out at you. Or maybe there's something surprising that you hadn't thought of before with spatial reasoning.
So the decomposing mentally or physically,
Mhm.
does that also mean also recomposing? If you're decomposing, can't you recompose?
Yeah, I would think so.
It still just kind of, catches me to think that, to me, spatial awareness is like very physical, but to think about it being, you might have to think in your brain first where something is in relationship to you or where something is positioned. And then it never dawned on me that you might need that time to do that and process. And sometimes when we work with children, we forget we need to give them that time for their brain to search for the answers.
Were you in my house when we were looking for the garage remote?
I love that, like, okay, let me trace my steps. Where did I go? What did I do? Where was I? Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of mental work that happens first there before the physical part.
Yeah, now, just think of how often young children bump into things,
Oh, yeah.
run into stuff.
Yeah.
And
Well, especially if they start to grow and they don't realize they're taller now, and that spatial, like before they could run under a big toy without hitting their head, and now they've grown half an inch, and it's like they
Yeah.
haven't spatially like figured that out yet.
Yeah. What happened? Why doesn't it work anymore?
Right?
Or thinking through those changes, like as they're sliding across the floor on their knees, is fine, but then the table is at the end, right?
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
And you have to get under that table. Yeah.
Right.
I was going to say, having spent a lot of years with junior high kids, and they have not spent very much time in their current bodies either, and they spend a lot of time bumping into things and tripping over things because they are pretty much occupying a new body almost, and so it's kind of fun and funny to watch.
Mhm.
So, all right. So here's an activity. This comes right out of Piaget's research. It's called the 3 mountains task. And so you'll see a diagram there. And on the left is kind of a picture. I kind of think of it as, well, it's called 3 mountains. And to me, it almost looks like, because they're green, like a mountain and a couple of trees. But Piaget used to present this to children and say, here's a view looking down, and if I'm on one side and the child is on another side, which image on the far right, there's 4 pictures there, which of those images would match Piaget's view? I'll give you a time to think about that. Yeah, and then which one would match, what would the child see? And then how do you know? How did you think about that?
I have to reposition myself.
But even doing that, what do you mean by reposition yourself? That's an interesting comment.
Well, I'm looking at it when I'm looking at it straight on like this, I'm looking at the child's view. So I have to kind of have to think about it. Okay, if I turn myself this way and looked at it from the back end, how does that look? So yeah, you do have to kind of reposition yourself in my mind.
Well, then we're back to that mental positioning.
Yes, exactly.
Does anybody want to venture an answer?
I'm gonna say the top one
Is
is
who's
the child's view.
the child's view? Okay.
Mhm.
And what makes you think that?
That the light green is more in the front and the dark green is in the back on the right.
Mm-hmm. And so that, what about that picture indicates that maybe the light green cone is in the front, or the dark green cone is in the back?
Closer to the child.
Okay.
Mhm.
Does
I
anybody
was
agree?
looking at it not from Piaget or like the bottom, but like from the top. If you look from the top and then
Mhm.
go from the top and then move yourself down.
Mm. Mhm.
I kind of thought that also the top one, because the green triangle is the light green triangle is the larger one on the left.
Mhm.
And in the background is the smallest green, the dark green triangle.
Mhm.
That's how I was seeing it.
Okay.
But it's really much more difficult for me to place myself in Piaget's view from the top and then go to the other side.
What do you think that is?
Because I'm facing, I'm facing like in a map, I'm looking forward, and for Piaget's, I even sometimes with maps, I have to, okay, let's turn it around. Like, where am I?
Mhm, mhm,
And it has to match my orientation.
mhm.
Mhm.
Mine was very simple. I just looked at what the light green was on the right, more or less, and the dark green was on the right, or excuse me, the light green was on the left and the dark green was on my right.
Mhm.
So when I did that, I could see that the top image had that kind of position where the light green was on the left and the dark green was on the right.
Okay. How about this bottom one?
But then
Could it be that?
in front and back was also taken into consideration.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, and I'm kind of struck by we do process things being in front or back by what's blocked or not blocked, right? It doesn't appear that this back cone is kind of blocked by the big green mountain. So, okay, well, good. So here's something similar, and very much more kind of real world and using some of the things that we have. So this left image is our thing sitting here. And here's a little llama. The picture that Elin came up with. Which of these other two pictures would represent what the llama sees? And I'm going to let you think about that for a moment. And in the meantime, I forgot to go put my dog out and she's barking now. So I'm going to run downstairs, let the dog out, and I'll be right back out of breath. Okay.
I don't see the cloth or the, oh, I guess it'd be, right? I don't see the cloth or the styrofoam.
On the bottom image.
At the bottom image.
Yeah.
Are they inside the box?
Which image on
The
there?
bottom image of the picture's taken from the other side if the llama was on. So the llama's view
Okay.
have to be the top picture.
Yeah. That's where I see it too. It's just that, because if I were sitting in front of it,
You
that's
would,
what you would see.
right.
But if you were sitting in back of it, then the bottom one is what you'd see.
That's what I think too.
Do we agree it's the top one?
The
Yeah.
top one, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And it looks similar to the picture on the right.
There you go.
See, I go to the simple processing part.
You know, that actually brings up a good point because with this previous one, and people were saying, oh, it's easier to picture the child's view. And it's similar to the position of the llama. I wonder what would, what if we had turned this picture upside down or put the llama on the other side, if that would have made it more difficult.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Because we were talking about the fact that the top picture definitely is the llama's view, but if he was behind it, the bottom picture would, or in this case, on the other side, the bottom picture would be the view. Oh, excuse me. Something tickling my throat.
All right, so we're going to play now, and this is how we play Guess My Design. And the way that we first saw this played is actually from a video that, gosh, I think Piaget made a long time ago. What happens is in a non-distance learning setting, you'd have a teacher or a leader with some objects, sometimes blocks, anything that can be moved or manipulated, and then a screen of some kind, and then children or other participants on the other side of the screen. And with those objects hidden behind the screen, the leader then makes a design of some kind and then describes it to the other participants. And then they do their best to build what is described. And then after a while, the screen is removed and we say, hey, how close were we? Did my design match your design? But we don't have a screen because we're all distance learning, but I have my objects that you saw, but now I'm hiding them from you and I'm not going to show you, but I will make something and I will use only those objects, and then I will describe to you what it is I've made, and you see if you can do what I have done, okay? So I'll start with the small white styrofoam rectangular prism, and I'm going to set that on the table on one of the large sides. So it will be laying down horizontally on the table. And I am going to turn that, I'm going to say 45 degrees, so that from the edge of the table or looking straight down on it, it kind of looks like a diamond more than a square. And then I'm going to take the cylinder and I'm going to set that on top of that square piece of styrofoam. And I'm noticing that on the bottom of the little plastic cup cylinder, there's a very small circle right in the middle. And I'm going to try to put that small circle in the middle of that square. And then I'm going to take this little piece of cloth and I'm going to roll that cloth up into a cylinder. And I'm going to put it inside the plastic cylinder. Now it kind of unfolded a little bit. I don't know how to make it stay, so now I have to describe it in a different way. I'm going to move that so the cloth is standing up vertically inside the plastic cylinder. I'm going to move it towards the bottom of the circle so that, let's see if I could describe it this way. If the top circle of that plastic cylinder were a face, then the cloth is curved around the bottom of that, kind of like a smile. And the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this large box, this large rectangular prism, and I'm simply going to set it to the left of my other objects. And I'm going to put it about an inch away from the cylinder, which has a cloth in it, which is sitting on top of the small styrofoam rectangular prism. And that's my design.
Wait, which direction is the box facing?
Ooh, what a great question. So I was not detailed enough or descriptive enough. I arranged the box so it is sitting on the large flat base. And pretty much, and I know because there's the hat and the 08 there, I've arranged it so that that looks normal and readable in front of me.
Okay.
That's a great question. Any other questions? Okay. And I'm going to show you my design. And see how close we got. Okay, there's my design. And how did we do? And I really use that word intentionally. It's we, because this is not how well you followed instructions. It's also how well did I give instructions. So
I guess I got confused with the cloth.
Yeah.
Because I rolled my cloth into a cylinder, like I rolled it like this way.
Yeah, I rolled mine into a cylinder
Uh-huh.
like this. And then when I put it, and I think I used the word vertically, into the cylinder, it unrolled. I couldn't keep it rolled up.
Oh.
So then that's what I said. I slid it to the bottom, so it's kind of like a smile.
I just took my cylinder and I forced it in here like a
Yeah.
cat, like a smile on the bottom.
Yeah. And you made it smiley shaped.
I did.
Right on.
My box was a little too far away. I wasn't, I think you did say like an inch, but I think I went a little further.
Yeah,
Well,
mine-
and if I move this over so it's a little bit more under the camera.
Oh, yeah, that makes a
that looks
difference.
good. Yeah, the other way it looked like it was right up against it there, a little close.
Well, it also looked like there was a big white circle that it was on, resting on.
Yeah.
But I see it's the cylinder, yeah, with the styrofoam.
Shaped like a diamond. And that was
Yeah.
little. Yeah. Okay, so now we're going to go another route. And now I want one of you to volunteer to make a design and tell us what to build. And so somebody else be the leader. And if you were doing this with children, it is great to let them lead also.
Mhm, mhm.
Giving of instructions is just as challenging, if not more challenging, than following the instructions. And also this time, as we go through, well, and I'll even ask, what kind of spatial vocabulary did you hear me using as I was giving instructions? Just give me some words you
next
heard.
to, on top of.
To the right of or left of or.
The directionality.
Mhm.
The face, you know, the face of the box, the horizontal.
Mhm.
And you said to turn the styrofoam like 90 degrees to
Okay.
make a diamond.
And the cylinder, rolling your cloth into a cylinder,
Yes.
and then relating it to a smile. You know, so that's something.
Yeah, I was trying to
very
get
visual.
as close to or as proper a geometric terms as I could.
Yeah.
So the round thingy.
Again, some positional words, you know, center it, center this, there was a little circle on the cup, center that on the styrofoam piece.
Mhm. Okay. All right, so who wants to volunteer to be our leader? And if nobody volunteers, somebody's going to get voluntold. And everybody's cameras go off all of a sudden.
I'll volunteer.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so
Joan's always a brave one.
Go ahead.
well, this is fun. I mean, we need to have fun while it's here.
Yes.
So, I had to look up what a rectangular prism was for this before this, because I always associated the prism with a triangular prism, but I learned. So take your rectangular prism, your box, and place it on a flat surface with the shortest side and the narrowest side on the base. Is that going to work? No, maybe that's not going to work. Forget that. And it's not going to work because it is, well, actually, is there a way? I guess I'm kind of curious. Is there a way that you can make your rectangular prism stand up on its side?
I just tore that piece off the bottom.
Can we take off? No, we can't, because then it wouldn't be a rectangular prism. Okay, so So, and let's scratch that. Let's,
You've given us a problem to solve, Joan.
I know,
You've given us a
I know.
problem to solve. That's okay. I got mine to stand up.
You did, okay.
I did too, horizontally, but not vertically.
Okay, let's work with this. Let's do it horizontally along the length of the side.
What do I do now?
Length of the side. Okay. And then you put your cylinder on top with the base, with a little circle on the base, the closed base on top of the face, the long, narrow face of your rectangular prism that's standing up. Then put your cloth on top of the cylinder over the open hole. This is a balancing act.
It is.
And so it's flat and it covers the hole. And then on top of that, place your styrofoam piece.
Joan,
Right.
is the cloth the fabric color side up or color side down?
I have it color side up, the
Okay.
fabric side up.
Fabric side up. Okay.
Then place your styrofoam with the square face down, and then rotate it where it's 45 degrees, so it's now more like a diamond. And so, yeah,
On top of the fabric?
on top of the fabric.
Okay.
Let's see.
Oh, mine just fell. Gotta go pick up my pieces. They just fell.
Oh, okay. I'm trying to have no, I can't, I don't even know how to have no, I've had my background screen so long.
Oh,
It's in your video camera, but
But I don't see where it says none.
you might have to open.
Oh, I can go to
virtual
video
background.
settings.
Yeah, go to and choose virtual background.
right. And then the first selection is none.
Yeah, but somehow I don't see my. Let's try again. Because, oh, I got it. I just, okay. So this, this is gonna work.
Another
Okay.
problem to solve.
So
Yeah.
this is another spatial problem to solve. That's on the side. How did your, do they look anything like that? And this is where we can be a little Piaget-ian. Here.
There's mine from the top. And what we could do is then move my camera down around. Is that what
Oh, yeah.
I did the same thing. I couldn't get my lid to keep it balanced. I had to take the lid off my box.
Yeah.
Huh.
Here's it upside down.
Wow.
Wow. So that was interesting in a lot of different levels. No pun intended.
It seems easy, but to think about the language as you're trying to describe it is really it could be a little challenging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it is.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's hard to think about it as you're trying to describe what you're doing with it. Yeah.
Yeah, because you're experimenting.
Uh-huh,
You're not
uh-huh.
sure. Yeah. But that's the nice thing, you know, of just trying things out, right?
I've done something similar to this with older children or adults, where you'd sit two people back to back and give them each a pad of paper and a pencil. And one person has to draw a simple design, like let's say the outer design of a house. And then they have to describe what they drew to the person behind them so they could draw the same image.
Mhm.
That could be a nice for teachers on a 2D and then move to a 3D in terms of a learning progression for participants. That would be really interesting. Remember when we used to do in-person training?
Yes, so long ago.
So you're cheating a little bit. It's like you're reading my mind. So let's go the other way. We've just done this with 3D.
Oh.
But now what if we went to 2-dimensional? Okay, and you might be wondering, how would we do 2-dimensional, especially with virtual learning, distance learning? And what I can do here is, there is a link I'm looking for. All right, so in the chat, I am pasting a link to what are called Didax pattern blocks. So if you wanted to just open that up, and you should see something that looks like this. Is everybody seeing that?
Yeah.
Okay. And so you can experiment with that a little bit. Over on the right-hand side, you have kind of a palette of different geo blocks, pattern blocks, and you can drag those onto a table. And hopefully you're playing a little bit while I'm playing. And then you'll notice if you hover over the shape, you get a little rotating tool. And so each time you click, if you click a little towards the top, it rotates clockwise. If you click a little towards the bottom of that circle, it rotates counterclockwise. And it looks like, if I had to guess, I would guess it probably goes about 5 degrees at a time. But that's a guess. I don't know for sure.
My computer is a little bit slow. So, oh, I got it. Yeah. Taking a little time.
And there is an undo button at the bottom of that palette. And that can clear it off. And I think the eraser is, if you just click on one thing, it will just erase one object. If you click the round button on the right, it erases everything.
Wow, that's fun.
Yeah. Okay, so let's have somebody volunteer to do this Guess My Design activity again. Somebody volunteer to be the leader for us. But this time, instead of using our 3-dimensional objects, you're going to lead us through something with these 2-dimensional flat virtual manipulators. So do that. Doesn't have to be me.
I'm still having mine's still having trouble coming on.
Like getting rid of them?
No, it's my internet is not cooperating right now at this point. It's kind of looping. Okay. So I'm trying another avenue here. Nope.
No luck?
Not cooperating.
Took a little while for mine to boot up too.
Now, another way to do this is if, I don't know what you have either in your office or near your desk. If you have pattern blocks, you could just grab those as well. If I were in my office, they'd be within arm's reach, but I'm at home, so I don't. Actually, I think
This is.
there might be some in the garage.
This is fun.
You haven't unpacked everything yet, Scott?
Well, I know I have a box of math manipulative stuff in the garage.
Oh, yeah. Well, mine's not cooperating.
Oh, no.
Does anybody else want to share? I mean, I don't want to
Oh,
that, but
Paula, is yours ready?
Well, yeah, I'm sitting here very happily making something. So
Well, would you lead us through what you've made and see if we can make the same thing?
I will try. Okay, so click on your yellow, is that a hexagon or an octagon?
Well, what's the difference and how could we tell?
It's a hexagon with 6 sides.
Okay.
All right.
good job. Good job.
Thank you. And drag that over into the middle. Okay, and then you're going to take one of the red trapezoids, drag it over on the bottom part of your yellow hexagon so that they touch each other. The top of the red is touching the bottom of the yellow.
Top of the red is touching the bottom of the
Does everybody have that?
Yes, I
Yeah.
think.
Okay, then you're going to grab another red trapezoid and drag it to the right of the red trapezoid you just placed and connect it. You have to rotate it slightly to the left and fit it up against the yellow hexagon so that the 2 reds are connecting around the yellow.
Mm.
And what you're going to do is you're going to take a red one, another red one, and you're going to place them all around your yellow hexagon so that it looks like a flower.
hey, could you repeat that again?
You're going to take a red trapezoid and place so that you have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, so that you have 6 red trapezoids on each side of the yellow hexagon.
And each one rotated
Each one rotates,
completely.
yes.
This is quite fascinating.
Right?
Yes. I finally got mine to open up. I'm going for it now.
All right.
Our children these days would love this, wouldn't they?
Uh-huh. This is great.
This is just while we're all sitting and playing and doing this. This is not the only online pattern block tool, and
Mm-hmm.
dozens of them. This is just one that we've come across. I wish the rotate was a little more draggable.
Right.
Although,
And you know, it seems like after the rotate of 180. Oh no, keeps going. Okay.
I love hearing everybody repeatedly clicking. The click does give you a level of precision, though.
Mm-hmm.
that I think dragging wouldn't allow you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
What did you call this website, Scott? You called it a,
Didax?
The company is Didax.
oh, okay.
I think they make math manipulatives of all kinds.
Hmm.
And then they have on their website, there's some virtual. I think there's some other virtual tools they have.
Took me a while to figure out that the arrow, depending on which side of the arrow you hit, changes the direction.
Direction of rotation, yeah.
Mhm.
Paula, was that it, or are there?
So once you flower the yellow center of your flower with the red petals around, then you're going to take one of the white, I don't know what this shape is called, the long diagonal or diamond shape. You're going to drag one of those over and put it underneath so that it touches the red flower. And then you're going to take a green triangle and put it at the base, at the bottom of the white diamond. And then take another green one and put it on the left side so that they look like the stem.
Now you're placing the green triangles where in relationship to the white diamond?
The white, so the point of the triangle matches the bottom point of the white diamond on the bottom.
And you're putting two or one? Just one?
Just one.
Just one, okay.
On the right side or the left?
Oh, we're talking about the green? No, there's two greens. I'm sorry, Jerry. I thought you meant how many whites. There's
Oh, okay, yeah. Two
Yes.
greens, okay,
two greens and one white.
all right. Oops. I just hit the wrong button and everything disappeared.
Oh,
Oh,
that would make me really mad.
I'll try real fast to put it back together. That's okay. I remember what it looked like. So if you show us yours, I'll know if I got it right or not.
I don't know how I showed this to you.
You should be able to do a screen share.
Yeah.
And at the bottom, do you have share screen? Should be green. Controls. At the bottom of the Zoom window.
Bottom of the Zoom window somehow. Let's see.
the menu bar at the bottom
Oh,
says share
screen.
screen.
Yeah.
Okay. And now I'm looking for.
Look for your image that you just developed.
There's your flower in there.
Yeah.
Mm,
And click on that.
Wait.
Might even say 4C's desktop, Paula.
This is desktop. Oh, sure.
There you go.
Huh? Maybe that's not the one. Okay.
The
Right.
tab. One of the tabs on the top.
Yeah.
Now, another thing we can do is I'm just going to steal the share from you. So here's mine. How about if you tell me how close I got? Oh, there you go. You stole it back.
Wait, did I get it?
Nope, it didn't come back. There it
Oh.
is.
Hey.
Yay, Donna.
Wait, so is this,
I'm in there.
That's mine.
that's yours?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that,
that's exactly it.
yay!
Yay.
Hey.
And yay, you. That means you're a great instruction giver.
Ooh,
Good job, Paula.
Trying to name those shapes.
Yeah.
That would be, the white one is a diamond shape,
Well,
but it's called,
name for
it's called something different though.
I will throw out that diamond is not a geometric term. There's no such thing as a diamond in math.
That's true. So what is that? Is that a parallelogram?
It is a type of parallelogram.
Okay.
It's also a type of quadrilateral.
Quadrilateral, because it has 4 sides.
It has 4 sides, exactly right. And because those 2 sides, because that quadrilateral has 2 pairs of parallel sides, it is a parallelogram.
Ah.
But there's also one more special name for it, and it starts with an R, and you've probably heard it.
Rhombus.
Rhombus.
Yes, that is a rhombus.
That's a fun name.
Paula, you gave good directions because mine looks like Scott's as well.
Good, thank you.
Yeah.
There's.
All right.
There's.
Thanks for playing along.
Yeah, that was fun.
Oh, there's Jones.
Yeah, that was mine. Thank you, Paula.
Jerry, did yours look like that?
Before I deleted it, yes. Well, I was getting to the green part at the bottom when I hit the wrong. I was going over. I had the eraser and I was trying to get rid of the eraser, and then I hit the wrong button, and then it disappeared. So, but yes, I did have it right until I had the first triangle in place, and I was trying to get the second one, and I messed up.
It all just went to heck.
Now, I want to make sure that everybody's included here, and we haven't heard from Maria. Maria, were you playing along?
Yes, I was.
And how did your flower do?
My triangles, I did it way in the bottom and I didn't want to move everything up, so I just put them halfway
There you go.
just because I ran out of space to put him on the bottom.
Sure. All right. Let's,
That's pretty cool.
so I want you, if you would please, to really quickly grab a piece of paper of some kind. Scratch paper, Post-it note, something. Let's do a little thinking and reflecting here just about this activity, how it might relate to the people you're working with, whether they be families or children or teachers. And I'm going to give you 2 minutes. I'm going to set my timer for 2 minutes. I just want you to write down a few thoughts that you might have from what we've been doing for the last hour or so. And believe it or not, it's already been just about an hour.
Wow.
And time
feel that
really
way.
having fun. Right?
Yeah.
All right, so 2 minutes, just to write down some reflections on the activities we've been doing. Think about the 2D Guess My Design, the 3D Guess My Design. So about 1 more minute. says we have only about 1 more minute left in our breakout room. So let's do this real quickly. On what you wrote, circle 3 key words, or 3 words that just jump out to you. That was my timer. And I was going to have you just type into the chat real quickly what those words might be. But since we have 15 seconds, what are some words that stood out to you in what you wrote?
One of my, oh,
I was just gonna say perspective.
I was thinking of modification, like for other age groups.
For our hands-online activity today, we're going to be doing an activity called Guess My Design. So you will need the materials that were in your COP3 bag, your goodie bag. And so hopefully you had a chance to open that up. And if you peeked inside, you saw you had a box, like a rectangular prism or a box. And so if you don't have your bag, if you're just looking for things that you have around, so just some kind of a rectangular prism, a box shape, then you had hopefully a piece of cloth. And there should be like another piece of styrofoam that's in a different shape, or some kind of 3D object. And then the clear cylinder. So if you don't have your item from the bag, you can just find anything that has that same cylinder shape, like a glass would work. So hopefully you have those items ready. So as you're gathering those, I'm going to take some time to talk about spatial reasoning, because this is a concept that we're going to be exploring today with our activity, Guess My Design. We've been touching upon spatial reasoning quite a bit. Some of you may have remember way back when we had our Summer Institute in 2019, we did some exploration with spatial reasoning. We've done some activities in our hands-online activities during the breakouts that deal with spatial reasoning. Last year, we did the hole punch puzzles. But really, spatial thinking or reasoning involves the location and movement of objects and ourselves, either mentally or physically in space. It's not a single process or ability, but actually refers to a considerable number of concepts, tools, and processes, according to the National Research Council. And this is something that we know that children, this reasoning, spatial reasoning skill that they need to develop. They need to have activities where they are exploring this. And it's just some types of spatial abilities, or some types of concepts that, whoops, my mouse has a mind of its own. Concepts that deal with spatial ability are visualization, locating and remembering where objects are, orientation and navigation, mental rotations and transformations, comparing objects, proportions, scaling up or down, manipulating objects, perspective taking, proportional reasoning, creating and reading maps, shifting dimensions, decomposing mental objects. And again, quite a bit of things that lead to more complex or complex tasks that we think about in math and science really start with this ability to do that are grounded in spatial awareness and how we think about ourselves in space, where we are in space, and other objects in space, and how they move around in space. So this is why we're taking so much time, or spending quite a bit of time exploring this, because it really is foundational to a lot of concepts later on connected with math and science. And even Piaget really explored this idea. He had this task called a 3-mountain task, and where he would sit on, he would sit on one side of the table, and he had a child on the other side. So you can see Piaget's view, a child's view. And then he would ask them, well, what am I seeing? He would show them those different images that you see on the right and say, okay, well, what is my view? And see if they could think about that perspective. And so looking at that, which image on the right side is matches what the child would see? And if you want to put in the chat, you could put whatever, the one at the top, third one down, last. So which image is the view that the child would see?
It would be the top one, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so if he was going to ask the child, well, which view would be my view? What is the view that I'm looking at? Would they be able to answer that? Do they have that spatial awareness to think about those objects from a different perspective? And that's what we're exploring. If you think about this, which one is Piaget's perspective? Would it be the top, the second, the third, or the fourth one down?
The second one from the top.
The second, So again, thinking about those different perspectives. So another way to think about it is, so if you think about real, because again, those are very abstract images, but if you think about more concrete images, we have the view from the top looking down, and we have the llama, and then some of our objects that were in the bag. What view, according to the right, or which one of those pictures is what the view that the llama is seeing? Is it the top picture or the bottom picture?
The top picture.
It is the top picture. And why do you say that? How could you, or think about how would you explain that?
It's opposite of what they see.
Okay. So thinking about where the llama is, their perspective. And thinking about young children, would they be able to automatically think about what the llama would be seeing without physically moving over to that side, or would they have to actually get up and move? They might need to, and that's okay, but this is a skill that we eventually want them to be able to do mentally. And think about how this connects to not only mathematics, but just that idea of empathy, just putting yourselves in others' shoes and how that might feel. So not only this doesn't just connect to mathematics, but this concept of just this awareness and thinking about where you are in space related to others overarches into other concepts as well, and other content areas. Okay. So now we're going to get into the Guess My Design 3D edition, 3D version. So we're going to use the objects that you had in your bag, and I'm going to be the designer first. So I'm going to make a design, and then I'm going to describe that design to you. And you're going to use your objects to make that design, and then we'll see if you were able to match my design. Okay. So hopefully everybody has their objects in front of them. And round one, ready to play? Okay, so my design, I have my rectangular box on the bottom of my design. And it's sitting, it's laying flat. So the face that is the bigger rectangle is laying flat on the table, and the top part has the bow on it. Then on top of that, on top of the bow, I have my piece of cloth laying, and it looks like I know that the cloth is a square, a flat, a square, and the square is laying inside the rectangle. Okay, then I have my cylinder is on top of my piece of cloth. And my cylinder has a top that that's open, and that's facing down on top of the cloth. And then I have my styrofoam object, and my object is shaped like it's another rectangular prism. My rectangular styrofoam prism is sitting to the laying to the right side of my box. And it's not on top of the box, but it's next to it. So, did everybody make a design? And let me.
Where did you say you put the cylinder?
Good question. The cylinder is on top of the square cloth, and it's facing the part that's open is touching the cloth.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. Okay, so I'm going to stop that share. And there is my design. And my view is going from the top down. So hopefully you can see that. So thumbs up if you can use a reaction, or you can share in the chat. How many of you were able to make my design? Great. So how many of you or how many of you got close? Like maybe what was one piece off. So thinking about what we just experienced, I want you to use the chat for a moment. And what were some spatial words, spatial vocabulary that I used in, or maybe you were thinking about as you were making the design? What words did you hear? Okay, I'm seeing on top of, besides, next to, on top, open, inside, open, down, flat. Great. So this activity uses a lot of words, a lot of spatial awareness vocabulary, or spatial reasoning vocabulary, on top, bottom, right, left, all those words. So, and I was using those words, but when it's the student's turn, or if they're playing with a partner, they're going to be using those words to describe their design to their partner so they can build it. So I'm wondering, is there anybody that would want to build a design for us to try to make? Do I have any volunteers? If not, I can make another one. Okay, I'm gonna make another one. And again, so I'm gonna use the same objects. Let me see. Here we go, round 2. So round 2, you have your objects. So my design, the flat piece of cloth is underneath my rectangular box. And my rectangular box is laying flat on top of that, and it's facing so that the I know its face is a rectangular prism, and the shorter sides are the top and bottom of the rectangular prism. So, or if you're thinking about the way a paper is orientated, it's portrait versus landscape. And so, or the way I'm looking at it, the bow is now going up and down instead of across the package. Then I have the styrofoam piece is on the top. Let's see. And it's not on top of the box. It's actually above the box. Flat, but it's on the table, but it's on top. And the cylinder is underneath the box or on the bottom on the table, and the open part is facing up. The open part of the cylinder is facing up. Actually, you know what? I'm going to change my design right now. I'm actually going to make my change the position of my cylinder. I'm going to put it on its side with the open part facing to the left. So if I push it, it rolls. Okay, so I'll give you a second. Oh. And there's my design. My square is underneath. So looking at your design, how many of you came close? You can either share in the chat or give me a thumbs up. Okay, I'm seeing some thumbs up. If we think about words again, what words were helpful to you building that design? What were some other spatial reasoning vocabulary that you might have heard? Seeing open down. On top, on its side. Portrait and landscape was helpful. Yeah, and we have to think little, you know, depending on what you're using. Little ones might not connect with portrait and landscape, but I'm sure that they could come up with ways to describe that. Possibly thinking about the describing the shape. Right. So that was Guess My Design. And we've talked a lot about some of the things that that connect to our foundations and preschool foundations and K through 12 standards. So if we're thinking about this idea of spatial awareness and all the conceptual understanding that it entails, and we think about how it connects to our K-12 or pre-K through 12 or even younger standards, it would involve spatial awareness, problem solving with our preschool foundations. It certainly connects to the next generation science standards in terms of connecting to science and engineering practices. You're building things, you're thinking about how they are positioned in space. And they also connect to the Common Core standards of geometry, thinking about reasoning with shapes and their attributes, and our math practices. Are there any other connections to our standards or foundations, concepts that you can think of? And again, if you want to put those in the chat, feel free to. And so thinking about that K-12 system, you can think, and again, pre-K, it really, all these skills build upon each other. So it really is something that in the preschool and even infants, something that they can be working on. Oh, I have Mary see a comment: language and literacy, receptive and expressive. Yeah, definitely, because they're using their language to describe their design to somebody else. Definitely. And the person that's building the design really has to listen. So you really have to you're having to process what you hear and think about it from that person's perspective and build it. So definitely a lot of language. And again, it's that going across contents and thinking about different perspectives too. So even though you're dealing with math, it can be bridging that idea of, thinking about something from a different perspective. Okay, so what would the llama see? Yeah, so definitely a lot of language development, a lot of good things connected. So now we're going to try this game with a little bit different tool. We're going to use virtual pattern blocks. Oh, and I'm going to stop my share so I can put that in your or in the chat, oops. So right now in the chat, I'm putting in a link to these Didact virtual pattern blocks. So hopefully you're all on a device where you can open that up. This is a free website where you can go in and play around with virtual pattern blocks. So is everybody able to open that up? Does anybody have any questions? Okay, so if you have that open, we're going to play this game again, but we're going to use the virtual pattern blocks. So I've made a design on here, and so I've made a design with the pattern blocks. So I'm going to describe my design to you, and you're going to see if you can build my design or guess my design. So here we go. Is everybody ready? Okay, so my design, I have the red. Oh, you know what the red trapezoid is on the bottom. And the shorter sides are on the side. The base has the longer side and the top has the shorter side. Or I could say that the top and bottom are the two parallel lines. On that figure. Let's see. On top of the red trapezoid is a hexagon, which is a figure that has 6 sides. And one of its sides is sitting right flat with the matches the short side of the trapezoid. Like they're the same length. They measure the same length, so they match up. And then on the so you have the sides that match the trapezoid and the hexagon, and then right next to those, I have 2 triangles coming out on either side. And the side of the triangle matches up with the side of the hexagon. And they are the same length, those sides. So they match up. So it's not like the point is matching the side, the actual side is matching the side. And then on top of the hexagon is a square. And I know a square is a shape that has 4 sides. And it has 4 right angles, or an angle that's 90 degrees. And it's the way it's on top of the hexagon, its side matches the side of the hexagon. It's like matched up side to side, and they are the same length. And then on top of the square, I have a rhombus. Which is the blue figure. And it has two sides that are parallel. But the side that's connected to the square is connected side to side, and those lengths match up. And that is my design. So does everybody have their, did you build your design? Okay, here we go. I will share my screen. And there is my design. So does your design match my design? You can give me a thumbs up or where you're close. Oh, good. So I'm seeing some thumbs up. Again, we can think about what type of language was used and what was helpful. So some of us had we're finding this more difficult. Okay, so I'm seeing words that were helpful, or parallelogram, top, same length, longer.
Yeah, for me, hi.
Hi.
For me, it was helpful to hear on the top part, the name of the shapes. So, yeah, and it's just like parallel, all the things like that I can just with the kids, introducing new big words. I think that's a very, very good idea. I really like this.
Great, great. Yeah, so again, we might think about, if you actually had two students playing this game, or even if you were playing this game with a child or a teacher, what are some prompts that we could encourage children to use if they were struggling or needed to ask a question or clarification? What might be something helpful that we could encourage children to ask?
I think before we even do the activity with the students, we have to be sure that they understand all the words that we're going to use. Because if they don't understand what parallel or vertical, or if they don't understand those words, then they may be prone to wanting to ask what those are, but not understand it. So then they wouldn't get the concept and give up.
Sure. Yeah, that's true.
Because they're more advanced language. It's not something that's commonly used.
Mhm, mhm. And again, thinking of our PK through 12, or, we're thinking about PK through 8 years with this grant, working with young kids, you may start out with just having them connect to the colors. The yellow shape, the orange shape, the red shape. But then after they get used to it, maybe have them think about, what else do we know about this yellow shape? What do you notice? How is it different than the green shape? And they might come up with things like, well, it has more sides. They might be familiar with the term sides. They might know a triangle has 3 sides. So that's another way you can think about it. If you're thinking about using this with younger students, maybe having them connect with something that they know first, like colors or learning colors. So maybe it's just about reinforcing the concept of color at the beginning. And then, the next time you play, you can have them think about another attribute of the shape. Yeah, and then, thinking about those ideas of parallel and shorter and longer sides. Those are things that can be added on to.
Yeah.
So a lot of different possibilities with this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again,
Just
a lot of different, go ahead.
Yeah, to count, for younger kids, like I work with preschoolers.
Mhm.
So just count the sides and say like straight sides, like the lines. Just counting them, and how many, comparing how many sides do they have, the shapes, Yeah, I was thinking about that when we start the year, the beginning of the year, maybe just like you said, the colors and okay, how many shades does this one, the red one has? There's any other one that has the same number of sides? Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that.
Thanks. No, thank you. Thank you for sharing. So counting the sides with them. How many shapes are we using to make our design? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Mm-hmm.
I made a design using 6, but maybe you can say, okay, for today's game, you could start out by saying, my design uses 2 shapes, and then go from there. And maybe you could say one of my shapes has 4 sides. Do you think you know what shape it is? What one of my shapes is?
Yes.
One of my shapes has 3 sides. What shape do you think I used? And then go on from there too.
Yes, at my preschool, I have these kind of shapes, and I have some cards so they can match, and they love it. They can stay, the kids, they can stay forever right there. And sometimes I take out the cards and just give them the shapes, and they make their own designs. Yeah, but that's a good idea how you are telling us to use it in a different way. Thank you.
You're welcome. Aileen, did you want to share? Did you have?
No, I love all of these ideas. I think that that's a great way to just integrate. We're really integrating like algebraic ideas when we ask children to create something that's equal to ours. They're looking at shape as not only the quantity, but the characteristics and attributes of those shapes. And I love how you're talking about the scaffolding because that's so important. So maybe starting with the color or maybe making a number. Let's make a picture of 3 squares. And then they can talk about, well, what's true about these squares. And they can talk about the color, but also like Yolanda was saying, they could count the sides and count the corners. So they get used to all of these attributes, but all of the vocabulary as well, and integrating their own home vocabulary. Like maybe they'll count in Spanish, maybe they'll say, ángulos, and start relating the English words with their home language. And it's a lot of connections for young children to make, but these are all important foundations to build. And this is really the key to building these foundations so that they're prepared for kindergarten and beyond.
Yeah, and I just like, I think Liz Mary was sharing just all the languages that's involved. I would love to see like two students actually playing together, getting to the point where they could play together, and all the language that they would use to describe their design. If the objective is for the student to have their partner match their design like perfectly, and that's how they get a point or win the game. Like how cool would that be to watch that interaction and just the language that is used? And yeah, so a lot of possibilities with this activity. We wanted to share 2 different options, again, utilizing 3D options and things that you have available or families might have available in their home. And then also a digital resource that is available for free. So to wrap things up, oh, I have to share my screen again. I need to have I feel like I definitely need like multiple screens during these sessions because there is a lot to share. Let's see. So just to wrap up our thinking for this session, we would like you to just pull out a piece of scratch paper, or just, maybe you have a space on a piece of paper you're writing notes on, and write down a few thoughts you have from this session. Give you and then after you have finished writing a few thoughts, circle 3 key words from what you wrote, 3 things that really stand out for you. And then once you have those 3 key words, enter words one at a time in the chat and enter. So if you would like to share. So it's almost like a continuous chatterfall. Great. Seeing verbal skills, language, fun, puts the child in charge. Definitely. Language, shapes, listening. Lots of good stuff. Patience. Listening with intention, definitely. They have a purpose for listening. Following directions. Great. Awesome. Okay, well, we are at the time in our community of practice where it is our break time. So we're going to go ahead and let you go to your break. Have a 15-minute break. When we come back, we're going to continue with our moving forward together, and we have some breakout sessions. So these are your choices for the breakout sessions: extending the hands-on activity, engagement with infant and toddlers, best practices for virtual distance learning, and family engagement, and thinking about take-home kits. So during the break, be thinking about what breakout session you would like to attend. And when we come back, you'll have a chance to select. Okay. And thanks for engaging, everybody. That we had a fun time. I hope you did as well. And have a good break, and we'll be back in about 15 minutes. So about 2.
All right. So we should be recording now, and you might get a message asking you if that's okay, if you want to stay. So the first thing that I wanted to think around, and again, feel free to unmute and share that way if you're comfortable with that. Or you can also just write it in the chat and share that way, and we'll all try to keep an eye on the chat. So whatever's more comfortable for you. So the first question, just what are some possible big ideas from Guess My Design today?
I'm not sure I'm understanding the question.
So in the previous breakout session that we just had, where you're kind of playing the Guess My Design game, what were some big concepts or big ideas that were addressed through that game? So one example might be shapes. What would be some other examples of some big ideas, big concepts that we explored in that activity? Is that helpful, Maddie? Or okay.
Vocabulary, I would say, because the words that we're using in giving instructions are important.
What specific types of vocabulary did you hear as you were playing that game?
A lot. Positional phrases, for example, top, bottom, under, over, against. Let's see, the names of the shapes as well. Yes. Geometric shapes.
Yes.
Vertex.
Mm-hmm. Names of shapes, attributes.
To name a few.
Yeah, to name a few, definitely. I mean, there was so much, but those are great examples. Positional, like you said, that just spatial language all over the place, geometry, kind of vocabulary. Anything else? Any other big ideas? Or if you wanted to expand on ideas of vocabulary that came up. I think we just had one more person join us. So we're just kind of exploring this question. What are possible big ideas that came about as you were playing Guess My Design in the previous breakout session? So any big concepts, what did we explore in that? Some of the things that have been shared so far is a lot of different vocabulary, whether it was like spatial, positional, geometric, shapes, attributes of shapes, all this different vocabulary came out. And anything else?
I thought how important it is to have concrete objects to do, to engage in problem solving.
Yeah. So problem solving and using items, objects to do that problem solving.
Yes.
I see in the chat, we've got a couple more: communication, clarity, geometry, spatial awareness. And again, spatial awareness, direction, math vocabulary, shapes. So we've really pulled out some big ideas that we can experience through this Guess My Design game, right? So the next question that I want to explore with you guys is around what infants and toddlers do naturally that's already related to these ideas that you guys pulled out. So thinking about the vocabulary that was named, communication, clarity, geometry, spatial awareness, direction, math, vocabulary, shapes, problem solving, all these different concepts. Where do we see infants and toddlers naturally doing things that relate? Okay, so in the chat, we've got embody spatial reasoning. Yes. So I'm getting images of just, you know, little toddlers, babies just playing. They're so physical, right? Movement, crawling. Yes.
And they are not developmentally able to see the consequences of their mobility. And so crawling into or under things, or, you know, is they embody this problem solving of getting stuck under a chair as an example, or, you know, trying to get something out or putting something in, you know. So it's really fun to watch them.
Definitely. As you're speaking, Joan, I'm just noticing all of the spatial language that you're using to describe their embodied activities. So as they're crawling and this movement that's happening, the language that we can use as they're doing these things. Oh, you crawled under the chair. You got on top of the chair. All these different natural opportunities for directional language, for positional language, as Belly was talking about earlier. And for shapes, you crawled on top of a square chair, or, you know, different ideas and things. All right.
And toddlers like balancing things. They like to, you know, I've seen this, some toddlers are really into that. So go figure, but you know.
Right. And part of, I think, what's fun about that is that things fall when you're trying to balance it. So, you know, it's the challenge, and it's also kind of fun to watch things fall and roll around. We've got more things in the chat coming. So learning through their senses. Right. I mean, it's all about those senses and exploring their world in that way, right? Trial and error. And we've got play, rotating items, problem solving, wanting to be picked up, right? Cause and effect. So many different things. And all of these comments are kind of expressing how infants and toddlers are really engaged in their world. You know, they're very learning through their senses, through their doing, through their acting, through their crawling, through their exploring in this way, learning through interactions, right? So as we interact and engage with them, as they're doing things naturally that they already do, what could you imagine our role in those interactions, or our teachers' roles in those interactions that could kind of get at those big ideas we mentioned? Naming the action, great. Providing the language, hugely important. Just so much opportunity for them to explore language that's related to what they're doing, you know, so they can connect that language to their actions and the world around them. Awesome. Anything else? Encouragement. I love that. Yeah. Encouraging that exploration and allowing for a safe space to explore and encourage them. Definitely. Okay, so Cassie says purposeful. Does anyone want to think around that word purposeful and share, what are your thoughts? How can we make this purposeful for them as we're engaging what they're already doing?
One way, can I just talk or should I put in the chat?
You are totally welcome to talk. Totally by choice.
So one of a couple strategies I think that are pretty accessible and easy to do and purposeful is doing self-talk, describing what we're doing when we're doing it in real time, or parallel talk, describing what the infant or toddler is doing in real time. I think that that would be real purposeful.
Right. So whether we're describing what they're doing, we can also describe what we're doing, or, you know, even in the ideas that we come up with, do you want to do that, and suggestions of things. But I'm seeing so much of just this opportunity for them to learn language and connect it to their activities and to what they're doing. Set up the environment so they have to navigate the space. Awesome thought. So thinking about, you know, that play space that they have around them, and how can that kind of guide them towards a specific type of activity that you might want to do. So with that, I'm going to add our next kind of thing to think about. What are activities that can give opportunities for infants and toddlers to experience these big ideas? So on number 2, we're kind of discussing and thinking of different ideas that they already do naturally. So how could we kind of curate some activities or some experience for them? And okay, so we've got provide sensory activities daily. And I think that really connect with Jill's comment of setting up the environment intentionally so that they have to navigate the space in a certain way. Any other thoughts or ideas?
What about the natural drive of a child, like a peekaboo? You know, now you see it, now you don't. Like tubes, you know, balls going through tubes, or race cars going through tubes, or down ramps. I mean, the idea of motion, and now you see it and now you don't, and then you see it again. I think that it's pretty captivating for infants and toddlers.
Definitely. I mean, even some of those ideas are just going back to that beginning idea of object permanence, and them just beginning to explore and think about objects in relationship to themselves. And okay, so we've got another idea. Provide them with boxes of different sizes, places where they can fit in, baskets with soft toys. These are great. What might you imagine? Okay, let's go with the fitting in idea. Places where they can fit in. So you've got some kind of thing that they can fit in. What might that look like as you're engaging with children? What kind of opportunities could that provide for them?
we provide them with a spatial reasoning, because perhaps the box is too big. You know, it's like, okay, and perhaps it's taller, and they want to crawl, or you know, climb over it, and their little legs cannot reach over the size of the box. You know, in what way can they fit into the box? How about turning it, you know, on the side, and so they can fit in? So, and then smaller boxes that they are not as tall, but they can fit in, and they can easily go in and out. So it just sounds like a lot of fun.
It does sound like they would have a blast, and it's beginnings of exploring dimensions and size relationships and volume even. Like that sounds like some really very beginning ideas around volume too. That's really cool. Okay, so I'm hoping that everybody is capturing these ideas on the Padlet. Anybody give me a thumbs up or a yes in chat if you've shared a couple things in the Padlet, and if not, go ahead and go and throw your ideas in there as well. Did anyone not?
Could I have the link to the Padlet again, please? Because I came late. I'm sorry.
Gotcha. Yep. Let me. There you go. Okay, so in the chat, I'm seeing the box is in the National Toy Museum.
Yeah.
You want to say a little bit about that?
Yeah, there's a National Toy Museum, and just the cardboard box was put inside of the toy museum because it's so versatile and it can be anything. You know, so that was inducted into the National Toy Museum.
Wow. So much you can do with a simple box. And so many other just typical average items that are around the house that can be turned into these fun things for kids to explore. And it's almost like we have to open up our creativity and think like they do, so that we can, you know, see items in different ways and see the opportunities that we have and what they like to play with and explore. All right, any other ideas or thoughts? We've got about 6 more minutes. I'm going to go ahead and for a moment stop my share so that I can I'm going to check in on our Padlet and see what we've been adding in there. I think those are from wow, there's a lot of things we put in here from a long time ago. So we've got the ideas about strategies of self-talk and parallel talk in there, setting up the environment. Yeah, really navigating space and just exploring their space and using that in that language intentionally. Awesome. We got some more comments coming in. So I'm gonna just give you all a minute. I'm sorry, I am so losing my voice right now and I don't know why. I'm gonna give you guys a minute just to go into the Padlet and jot down your thoughts. And whether it's an idea that you took from somebody else, something that they wrote or something that they said that really kind of sparked your attention that you want to carry forward, or if it's a thought you haven't shared yet. Go ahead.
Brooke, I never done this in using the Padlet.
Okay.
So are we under scaffolding where your name is or?
Yes.
Oh,
Yep.
okay. And then to add a comment, we just click on, okay, I'll post to the column. I see, I see.
You got it?
So this whole section has to do not just with the this session that we are with you right now, but it has other comments from the previous section that you had.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So this is kind of where we've been gathering different ideas and thoughts that have come out of the breakout sessions for all of the COPs. So you have access to this outside of today and are welcome to go explore the different ideas, even from the other breakouts as well. Nice. I'm seeing professional noticing come up again, and how just that connection with them as they're exploring, and it's just the basis for professional noticing. So talking about those boxes again, not only can they try to fit in them, but they can think about what objects or toys and things can fit in those spaces as well. I'm seeing more ideas pop in there. So continue to just get your thoughts down. We've got 2 more minutes. Chris just sent out a message.
How can you do infants and toddlers without talking about Fred Rogers?
Play gives children a chance to practice what they are learning. Definitely. All these are great ideas, and just really taking or being mindful of the opportunity, really, because with infants and toddlers, it's so much about just kind of being with them and playing with them, and then engaging with them in ways where we're using language that can begin to give them ways to describe what they're doing and thinking and exploring. And even as we play side by side with them and they start to come up with different ideas, it might spark something like, oh, she went this way, maybe I want to go that way, following you in different ways, or setting up an environment to where it just guides them into an exploration. But these are all great ideas, and thank you all for sharing.
Now, Brooke, do we have access? We still have access to this Padlet even after, right?
Yep. You'll be able to keep this. It probably won't ever go away. So you can always go back to it at any time.
So you guys see the 3 questions. Now I'm going to stop sharing my screen because, again, these are just guides for our conversation today. I'm going to throw in the chat the Padlet. And so I will be taking notes, but you are also welcome to, if you would prefer to just put some comments in the Padlet, you can do that as well. And in the Padlet, it should look like this. You'll see at the very top is where I've written those reflection questions again. How have you engaged participants with hands-on activities? What's your favorite engagement technique? How do you see Guess My Design with 3D objects or virtual blocks working in your context? So that's just kind of a starting place, and we're just going to see where the conversation goes today, because what I want it to be is something meaningful for you guys. So why don't we just start with the question around engagement? What's your favorite engagement technique, whether it's working with adult learners or what you're seeing with students? Whether, I think our age range was about 2 to 5. I might have missed someone's, but I think predominantly that's what we've been with the students we're working with.
Something that I found with whether it's adults or children, I found more, we have hands-on activities during the Zoom call that participants, whether adults or children, are more engaged and they're more in tune and they want to learn whatever it is, the objective, the learning objective. If it's just physically looking and just me doing talking, you lose them.
Sure. And is there an object you can think of? Maybe one that worked really well when you were working with adults and one that worked really well with students that kind of stands out to you?
So something that I did with the adults, I did the lobster count activity during a math training. And so it was very hands-on and just, they were very in tuned into like, what is this? I don't understand. With the students, I actually helped the teacher and we did the shape finder. And so the students kind of went on a scavenger hunt at home during their virtual call.
Awesome. All right. Someone else, what's been some of the best engagement? And you can just add to it too. Maybe you have another activity that's that hands-on thing that has worked well with the adults or the students.
Yeah. Yolanda Rosales, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, when I was doing the virtual learning with the kids, that was my problem.
Oh, you muted yourself on accident, I think.
Yes. Okay. So it was my problem to get the kids more engaged. So I started doing the hands-on painting, you know, or doing science, and they love it. Yeah. My problem still is that sometimes the parents don't come and get the materials. And yeah, that's my problem. But when I can do it, you know, like just mixing colors. Look, I'm gonna make magic and mixing the colors, the primary colors, and they were like, oh, yeah, teacher. And then the other day, my teacher did with Play-Doh. She sent some Play-Doh home, and they were mixing the Play-Doh to make other colors. And yes, hands-on is how you get more engagement with the kids, and the parents are more happier.
Right, because they stay engaged and they're interested in what's happening. I love that color mixing. And you said you used Play-Doh and then paint for the kids?
First time I used watercolor, food coloring. And I just get my something like clear and just put, okay, look, let's make magic. Just put blue. So what color is my water? Blue. How about if I put yellow? What happened? Look, oh, and they were really, really engaging in that. And then I use tempera paint on another time. Yeah, too, and they love it. And yeah, just like that.
Awesome.
And the Play-Doh, my teacher did the Play-Doh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Very cool. And they think it's magical. I love that. Let's make magic. Great. Someone else, what's been engaging for the kids? And thank you who put Nearpod as an option is also on the Padlet. So I know that I have some teachers that try Nearpod, but the technology has gotten a little tricky. So whoever has found that to be successful. If you've got some tricks of the trade, I know that that might be helpful, as well as some teachers vary in what they're comfortable with. And some of them are finding it's hard to get parents to help the kids get to the Nearpod. So like sending a link doesn't always seem to be the most smooth transition. So any tricks of the trade, let's definitely share that.
Yeah. So I added that. What my teacher did was she started off with the parents. So she provided a parent training to train the parents so that they can support their child. And some of the parents aren't home with their child, so the student is with older siblings. And so the older siblings were also there available learning with the parent. And she has been very successful. So she started off with the parents. And together the parent learned it. And then what she would do is she would put the link in the chat box using Teams. And so student, then she provided support for the students. And so she would tell them, look, right here, you're going to see a link, and with screenshots and everything, you click on that, and that's going to take you to a different window, and you're going to see the activities. And so she did a lot of support with the parents and with the students, and that's how she was able to make it successful. And she said that once you drop the link in the chat, the students, once they click it, it takes them directly. So she said that there's different ways that you can use Nearpod, but that was the easiest way for her to use it, just putting it in the chat box for the students.
Okay. And so it sounds like, just like, when you have your classroom, you really needed good training for that particular virtual tool. So starting maybe with parents or whoever that supportive person is going to be for the child, so they know how to problem solve. And I heard you say screenshots. So sometimes we forget the value and the power of a screenshot, because when we're in person, like, we're seeing the same thing, but how do we help them to focus their attention on this virtual screen, where they need to, even if it is like a button. I love that every time people use, they're always naming the color of the button that they want the kids to draw their attention to, because at least, it's like, oh, in the middle of all this screen, I need to look for this color. But lots of training has to happen for that. But sometimes we go slow, to eventually go fast. Mm-hmm. So that's great. Thanks for adding to that, Anna.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? What's been engaging?
For me, go on, Imelda. Oh, sorry, Mr. Chair. Well, for me, like Jenny had mentioned before, scavenger hunts have been awesome. The kids like to get up, go around their homes looking for stuff, and bring them back, either building with them or counting. So we've done a lot of counting, and then also share outs. Children love to just share out, whether it's from a story that they drew a picture, so they like to show their picture, and I spotlight them, so that's their little moment. And then they call each other out. So I don't call on the next student. They do like, okay, throw the ball over to so-and-so. So just calling on each other. And I'm just facilitating the Zoom, but they're actually initiating everything that's going on. So for me, that's how I manage my Zoom, where I let them take the lead. And so they have an awesome time just doing, their share outs and scavenger hunts and stuff like that. So.
And was there any, so when you think about doing a scavenger hunt, Imelda, is there a particular, like, how do you describe the thing that they're supposed to find? Like any 3 items, or maybe you need to find something that's a triangle or a square, or how have you, like, what are some examples of different types of scavenger hunts you've done?
So I tell them, oh, can you go find 5 things that have, 3 sides, like, anything that has 3 sides. When we're working on triangles. So I divide it up. If it's letters, numbers, whatever it is, I adjust it to that. So the scavenger, or you say, go find everything that, you can find that has a circle on it, or go find everything that has a square. Or I even tell them, take, they actually use their parents' phones too. I said, take pictures around your house of things that are, either in the shape of a rectangle, a circle, or what have you. If it's a letter we're working on, I do the same thing. I say, go find 5 things that begin with the letter A. And it could be any 5 things. So when they come over, they share. they share out what they found. So that's what's exciting for them. So I just adjusted depending on what we're learning.
Awesome. Those are great examples. I put all that in the Padlet. Has everyone been able to open that so you can start to see it starting to, okay. Awesome. Someone else.
Okay, what I was gonna say is another strategy that I have seen that works well with both children and adults is using the breakout rooms, because it creates that opportunity for small group instruction and that individualizing the lesson, so all the children are engaged and involved in whatever activity is going on. So, and even with the spotlight, when you spotlight the children and during those moments, they are so happy, and it brings a whole meaning to virtual learning because the students are actually participating and they're also learning.
And they really like, I mean, I think us as adults get more nervous being spotlighted than the kids do. I mean, if you have that playful context with the kids, they kind of like having the attention on them. I have been surprised at how much my youngest likes to make videos, even though she's on a screen, what feels like so much, but she likes to make videos of things that never go anywhere. At least I hope they're not going anywhere. I don't think she can put them anywhere. Sometimes their skills are greater than ours. But it's true. They really like to be able to share a piece of their world with their classmates. All right. Okay. Any comments? I know we've talked a lot about engagement and even given some examples of hands-on things. We've leaned a little more with students. Have you done anything like for teacher trainings that you feel like was really good with hands-on? I think it was Anna that mentioned lobster counting, or maybe that was, I'm forgetting who mentioned that at the beginning. No, okay, then maybe it was Jenny. Anyways, someone mentioned lobster counting with the adult learners and how that was very hands-on, but is there any other, like when you're doing a training with adults that you have found a particular hands-on activity engaging with them?
I was going to mention that we did one activity that was, I guess it could work with both adults and children. We did it with children, but it's using the web camera as an alternate camera on Zoom. And you could, they're like simple little web cameras that you buy on Amazon for $18, like less than 20. And you just alternate in your Zoom video between both of them. So we found that very useful in engaging students online, just because instead of broadcasting like something in the back and saying like, oh, look, and you have like charts, you can actually have it in front of you and they could be looking at it. And it's just like a simple click where the teacher could just click over and use that web camera instead of maybe signing on to another device. So that's something that we really found engaging, and the students love it. They love being able to see what you're doing as you're doing it. And then, for example, if like Imelda said, you're doing a counting collection, you're able to ask the students, grab your counting collection, and you're doing it right then and there with them. Just kind of like the device that you used earlier to show us when we were in the breakout rooms, similar.
Yeah, well, mine is a web camera, and it is one of the greatest Zoom things that have been learned, at least for me, because at the beginning I was trying to use a second device.
Mm-hmm.
The beauty of that web camera and Zoom catching up is you can make it a second camera, and so you can keep your face on there so they still feel like they're connecting with your face as well as what you're doing with your hands. Awesome. Anyone else? We have about 8 more minutes.
Well, we also tried Beverly with our adults actually during one of the PTs. I just thought about it when I was listening to Jessica, was that we also had our adults go find a counting collection during one of our PTs and to come back and share, and just so you get the same dynamic as we did with the students where, you know, go around your home, just find any collection and bring it over. So I think it works. And I think that's why, you know, when we're doing it with the students, you feel both adults and children feel that partnership. I mean, I even have some of my students saying, look, Miss Mendez, I learned how to, you know, share my screen. Can I share my screen? I said, sure. You know, they want to share their screen. They want to, you know, they annotate, you know, stuff like that. So I think it works both ways in terms of like the validation that adults like to feel. So our students like to feel that as well.
Awesome. So it sounds like learning in general has become just this new thing we're all trying to figure out. And whether it's using a new web camera or new technology, or it's, I mean, let's just be honest, as teachers or staff developers, we're not used to saying, okay, everyone go in your home and find a circle and come back, and crossing your fingers and hoping everyone comes back with something that's a circle. Because when we're walking around our house, our lens is not, you know, circles and rectangles and shapes. Like that's not what our brain is processing. What our brain is processing is, you know, something else. For me, it's my kids or the dogs that are barking or the next task that I'm doing. So I'm really not looking at my world. I'm thinking about what's next. So allowing everybody to kind of reprocess their world is just, it's very new territory, but it sounds like we're all kind of learning, and what works well for students is really working well for adults too, because it gives them that full embodied experience. And we've talked about that embodied experience and how important that is for us to learn. It's one thing for us as an adult to just hear, well, you could have the kids do a scavenger hunt, you know, and it's another thing for us to say, okay, everyone take a stop right now. Now go find 5 circles, or go find 5 things that start with the letter A, and letting them look around their house and reprocess those things that can be like, I never thought of, you know, looking at this particular item with that particular lens. My pantry has become a whole new level of STEM and math that I never saw prior to this last year, but I'm telling you, the stacking and the problem solving, the building, the shapes, the counting, the organizing, the sorting and classification. I mean, I think I could teach math just out of my pantry. So, all right, so we've just, I think you guys saw, we only have about 5 minutes left. I just wanted to kind of guide us a little bit around the activity that we did today. I know in the group that I was working with, you know, there was a lot of academic language, and even the objects were kind of complex. And so one thing that I decided to do is I thought, you know, if I had to go like find something in my world, what could I find that might be similar? So this may be funny or not, but I thought it was kind of interesting because I was looking for something that you could easily like use that would maybe be a little simpler. So I thought for something flat, a napkin, if they could find some kind of ball, any size ball, and then I don't know if people would feel offended if you took a toilet paper roll. It's the new joke in my house anytime, because we went through all that toilet paper crisis in the beginning of COVID. But when I had gotten just the roll, I'm like, well, what if someone doesn't have like an empty roll, but they could use a full roll too? And what I thought was interesting is you see that circle, and a ball, you know, is similar to that, and it can even fall inside of it. But the other thing might be even keeping it simple, where just take the toilet paper roll and put it on top of the napkin. So you kind of simplify some of that language. But I want to kind of just have some space. Is there anything anyone has thought of related to the Guess My Design in either 3 dimensions or 2, like flat shapes or 3D shapes, that might work well with hands-on and engagement with kids or adults?
I was actually a colleague of mine. She's also on the training today, and we talked about how a lot of the words we used were very much so advanced language. Well, if you just jump in and do that, it's not going to work for young children. They're going to be lost and want to give up. but really trying to focus in on items that are more familiar, like something that would be a circle, or something maybe like the shape of, you know, a square or a heart, or maybe a star, something that's more basic that they would understand, to where we would just focus maybe on the color of that item or that shape and just keep it basic until they understand the concept of the game. And then from there, then go into something maybe a little more detailed once they're familiar with the activity and we've taught them and exposed them to the advanced language.
So it sounds like breaking it down into like, let's build some spatial language with really simple shapes that we already know. And then maybe we can use more complex shapes.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Anyone else?
Beverly, I know it's almost time, but how about special needs? I have a lot of special needs right now, and it's hard for my teacher to keep them engaged. And I know these special kids, you know, I have some with autism, and I don't know, really, I'm trying to get more and more ideas.
Sure. So in that, and what's challenging with special needs is it might vary what the need is and how you might want to accommodate or adapt that. But that's a really important thing. So maybe the first thing is just being aware of like, what is the challenge and what becomes the limitation for engagement. Is it like a child on the spectrum? I actually have a child on the spectrum. You know, they can become very super ultra focused, you know, and if they don't like what you're doing, they're going to be ultra focused on something else. So, you know, what is it that could pull them into that activity? Maybe it's a specific object they're obsessed with. So maybe there's some flexibility in that. But I think that's a good question. If they're not able to manipulate things with their hands, what would be a way for them to maybe play this game? Maybe the virtual blocks would be easier if they can touch and move. Maybe it's just even a picture. Like, can they be the person that describes something with a picture? Or maybe it's playing I Spy. I think Guess My Design is kind of like, did you guys ever play I Spy when you were a kid? Maybe, so I Spy, you just look out. So like I Spy, if you look at all our Zoom cameras, I spy a...
And I'm Scott, and I'm one of the coordinators at Ames, and we're going to spend a little time just talking about the activity that we just did, the last session. Actually, we had several activities, the Guess My Design, and then doing that again with pattern blocks and talking about spatial reasoning. And the purpose of this room is to talk about how to maybe extend that from early math up into upper elementary, maybe even into secondary education. And if that is what you would like to converse about, that's great. If that isn't quite what you thought this room was going to be about, there's no obligation to stay. If you know, if another room sounds better, then we're here to meet your needs. I will share with you right now a Padlet that I thought I had opened up. I'll open it up again and throw it in the chat. There it is. Oh, I actually did have it open. So here is a link in the chat to a Padlet, and hopefully everybody has used a Padlet by now. And if not, that's okay. You'll see, if you open that up, several different columns, and each one of our breakout rooms right now has one of these columns. So on mine, it's the third one over that says extending the activity, and my name is there. And I'm perfectly happy to add things to this Padlet. we're using this just as a running record of all of our community of practice conversations all together. So if anybody wants to come back to this at any point, or maybe you want, you know, you're in this room, but you kind of had some interest in one of the other conversations as well, you can always come back here and see what other groups we're talking about. But since other people have this open, I'm certainly not the only one who needs to add to this. So if you have an idea or want to throw something in there, just click on the little plus sign at the top of our column, add a comment. We have it set up so that the most recent additions are on top. And so you can see yours just right there right away. I have just some questions prepared just to start our conversation. And the first question is this. So as we were thinking about spatial reasoning, and we did the Guess My Design activity in a couple of ways, thinking about the state standards for math, science, engineering, all the STEM different content areas, what might be some of the big ideas or big concepts that can come out of that? And I'm very much just open to people just unmuting and chiming in. I think we're a small enough group we can do that without stepping all over each other.
So this is Sarah from El Dorado County. And I think for me, when I hear that question, because I come from the early childhood education world, how important, and I found this in our activities that we did, language behind spatial awareness and those kinds of things for our early learners, how to just expose them to those different languages, and then also being able to allow them to experience the hands-on or just even the full body movement of moving through spatial language, how important that is to be able to even understand further concepts as they go through the K through 12 process.
I'll share the back now. Is there somebody else? What are some other big ideas? So language development.
I think I have to agree that the language development piece is really important because I know I would have struggled a little bit to just be able to use the right terminology and even just the right name of the shapes and things like that to as an instructor who teaches teachers, I would have to come back at them and say, okay, let's review over this, because I had to review over these shapes. What's their names? How do we introduce those to, again, my level of teaching is at that preschool level. So, and kind of get over that stigma of yourself not really understanding so that you could be able to teach it more comfortably.
Yeah, thanks, Jerry. Yeah, it's always good to reevaluate ourselves as learners of mathematics.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay to always be a learner.
Absolutely. I know in some of the trainings we've been doing and some of the things we've been doing, we've just been talking about math language, period. What are those words, besides just identifying, shapes or whatever it may be, but terminology and all that kind of thing. So just learning that new language on the level that we're at.
One of my favorite quotes I came across last year is, if a 5-year-old can say Tyrannosaurus Rex, they can say trapezoid. It's okay. They really can.
Yeah. And they get very excited about it when they can say these words, and they does make sense when they see a shape and they can identify that shape with those big words.
Some other big ideas are standards, even strands, big concepts. Even things just like geometry, geometric concepts.
I think again, it came down to the language, the placement of the shape of, and even taking two-dimensional shapes and putting the language into the three-dimensional shapes, and which actually I personally had a hard time with, and which made me kind of think about my own spatial awareness is not maybe as defined as it should be to be able to explain. So I just think, again, it's very important for early childhood educators and everybody to pay attention to those kinds of things.
And again, that critical thinking component that is introduced here, and as they get older, are refined and really utilized more. I think that's important too. We talked about the fact that we have to give children time to think about, oh, where do I put myself in position to something else? Or where does this go in position to that? So it's like you have to think about that in your mind first before you can physically move it or even move your own body, to make sure you're moving the right way. So that critical thinking piece is so important here.
So I'd like to ask a question. I've always kind of heard, maybe through, research and whatnot, that is that something that you have found to be true? And if so, how do we address that?
I'm sorry, Paul, I'm laughing because you said, right when you said, I learned from research that, and then you froze, and then you said, is that true? I'm like, yeah, absolutely.
All right, so am I unfrozen?
You're unfrozen now.
Unfrozen. So the research that boys outperform girls in spatial awareness starting at a young age, and does that continue throughout adulthood? And if it's the case, then should we be addressing girls differently in teaching spatial awareness? Just curious what your thoughts are.
Can I answer that, Scott?
Please. Yeah.
I've done some research in that area, or I've been collecting the research, and that does seem like that is one of the ongoing narratives that is a myth about girls and spatial awareness. There's some research out there that show maybe that boys perform better on one type of spatial learning, but that still is very tentative. And I think it is I think girls do perform just as well. It may be it is interesting though, and my interest in research is why then do girls tend to drop out of STEM fields? Why engineering? There's one particular researcher that's looking at girls in engineering in college and in postgraduate work, and why is that so difficult? Or why do women tend to drop out and be a male-dominated field? And she's done a lot of work trying to change that.
Good. Well, I'm glad to hear that it's more of a myth, because that was kind of like my thought, but
yeah,
it really can't be true.
Right. Yeah. Just this morning, in the last few days, we've been reading the new California State Math Framework that is in development in the proposed version of that. And the language there is very clear that the equity piece is, you know, cross gender, cross cultural, cross economic level, that everybody can do math, can, you know, in every realm, spatial reasoning, algebra, geometry, that there is no research that supports that any one subgroup outperforms another or is more capable than anyone else. So, and it's really encouraging to see that now officially and explicitly as part of our math framework in California.
And so kind of to piggyback on that, and I appreciate that the research kind of backs us up, that there is no, you know, it's not gender specific or anything like that. But this last year I have run a early learning math learning community with our county up here, and the people that participated were all women. And they all actually, because I posed them this question in the beginning, and based on what we had talked about when we were in Fresno, and a lot of things that I've learned through this initiative. And the people that joined my math learning community were women who already were kind of geared towards and were exposed to math learning at an early time in their life, and that's why they chose math. But we also had those conversations of how they see that culturally, yes, you know, it's always been girls do this, boys do this, but just through exposure. And I think that's why this is great that we're having these conversations and moving it in a different direction. As there isn't the lack of knowledge, I think it's the lack of exposure and the lack of comfortability with it, which, as I said, I think is really great that we're doing this so we can kind of shift that. And because there are those women out there who really do have that math brain and whatever it is, they just didn't always get a chance to do it. And one piece from that as well, in our last conversation, one of the teachers that were in it, she was like, well, I never really played with Legos when I was a kid. And it was like, well, how come you never played with Legos? And again, I think it comes down to the exposure piece of it.
Yeah, not only exposure, but just the messaging.
Yes.
When a person, whether it be a parent, and I've heard parents say right in front of their children, and I just want to scream, but you know, whether it be a parent or a teacher or a counselor or somebody, you know, maybe you shouldn't take that class, or that class isn't right for you, or why don't you try something a little easier? Just that messaging can really shut people down, whether they be a person of color or you know, a girl in that classroom. And it's funny that you mentioned that, Sarah, that you know, we still have this mentality of there's a math brain and a not math brain. And that's one thing the research very clearly says is there's no such thing. We all have that.
Yeah.
There is no such thing as you know, those who get it and those who don't. And that's one thing we really have to overcome, because that's what makes math the gatekeeper, the kind of gatekeeper of success and access and exposure, like you said. And that's what we really have to break down.
On a positive note, I also want to say that through the learning communities and just the trainings that I've done over this past year with early childhood educators, it has opened up, at least for some of them. I mean, it's not a huge group, but it has opened up their eyes to how available math learning is in just day-to-day activities or child-initiated activities. So that's something that I was able to bring to them, of just opening up that perspective where and how math and science and STEM can just be learned in the day-to-day, and just by simply observing the children that they work with, or the adults even that they work with. So
great point. Yeah. There's a great conversation. It's going a little different direction than I had thought, but it doesn't matter. We go where we go. So let me, instead of trying to walk through a series of questions, I'll just throw all these up, and if any one of these connects with you. So what are some ways we could link these big ideas that we talked about? And maybe one of the big ideas is equity. And then, you know, what are some ways we could link that with upper grade math? What might be some things that older students do naturally that are related to those big ideas? And what are some ways that teachers from all content areas might use those ideas? So really that is kind of where we were going anyway, but I'll just throw that out and leave it open.
I think again, just the awareness of, and I don't work with upper level grade, but I don't know. I just think the awareness of math and how easy it is to be, or not easy, but how it can be exposed in a lot of different ways to natural abilities of students. So I think it comes down to the educators, the parents, the administrators to be able to see that math is everywhere, and it's so.
Oh, Sarah, you went on mute there for just a second. Anyway, got a couple more minutes. Anybody have any other comments, something resonating with them there?
I just like the fact that we need to remind people, like you said, Scott, and just remind ourselves and changing that mindset of, you know, I'm a math person, or I'm a language person, or I'm stronger in this area or weaker in this area. And just really, as we move children even through into those upper grades, it's even more important, because that's where it gets a little bit more challenging, where their abilities are being challenged too, as to whether they're good or not good at something. So I think just having that change of you're changing your mindset that everybody is capable. Everybody is.
Yeah. Like I say, that really is spelled out pretty explicitly in the new framework. And
that's great. That's great.
Yeah, because I hear that like all the time from parents of, oh, I'm not a math person, and oh, no, math's not for me. I can't do that. And they say that in front of their kids. And that's the message then, that math isn't for everyone. And some people just don't do it.
The line I always say, and if you've been around me at all, you know I say this all the time: how to be a math person. Be a person, do math. That's how you be a math person.
Be a person, do math. I like that. Nice.
And I think that that messaging needs to come from that early childhood years, that it's just all around, and we're all doing it all the time. And even like, we're just math people. We just are, because that's the world that we live in. So.
And that's a great point, just that we have to be math people because we live in a math culture. We really do.
Absolutely.
So much math around us all the time.
And the science and the technology and all of that stuff.
Yeah. And if you ask a kid, how old are you? That's a math question. They're doing,
And they all know right down to the 6-month level, right? They all know that they're 4.5 years old.
that's right.
They do, they do. Those half points are so important.
Yeah.
So we wanted to start off our time together. Again, this is really a time for you to connect with other folks that are in our initiative. And so we had some questions for you to think about today. To think about how you and your organizations have been able to connect with families. So what are some of the ways that you've been able to connect with families during this time? What are some things that have been successful? What have been some challenges that you have faced, or you are possibly anticipating facing in connecting with families? And then how might you engage families in an activity like Guess My Design? Or it can be a similar activity, but maybe as you were going through the activity itself, you had some thoughts about how you might engage with families with this idea or with this activity. So again, if you have any thoughts about those right now, I encourage you to put them in the chat. I'm also going to put the link to our Padlet in the chat. So hopefully everybody can open that. And so feel free to add your ideas to the Padlet as well. I'll be capturing some ideas also. We really wanted to use this Padlet as something we could continue to add to each. We started it at the first community of practice and keep on adding to it. Oh, I see that. Yeah, Mary shared that for possibly a challenge is virtual parents cafe challenges, no access to internet or lack of device and not tech savvy. Yeah, I can see where that could be a big challenge. If you have parents that are having connectivity issues, and that's the only way that you are able to reach out to them. Are there those in the session that have found ways to maybe alleviate connectivity issues?
For some of our family childcare providers who participate in Quality Counts California, First Five was able to purchase, for those who didn't already have a laptop, they were able to purchase Chromebooks for those. However, it wasn't enough for everybody. And then when we have events like parent cafes, we weren't able to get, to everybody. It had to be for those who were already participating in something specific. Whereas parent cafes had, we open it to everybody in our county, but some people aren't able. It just alienates some who don't have that technology.
So from what I'm hearing you say is the virtual parent cafes are free, are accessible to families, but they have to have a device. Is that correct?
Right, or internet,
yeah.
or
Yeah. Yeah. Has anybody found ways to connect with families that has been really helpful during this time?
Can you repeat that again? Sorry.
Sure. So what are some ways that you've been able to connect with families that have been really really helpful or
for us, I mean, we try the emailing and or the phone calls, and then we also do the Learning Genie. We have the Learning Genie app, so we do emails through there too. But what's helped us the most is that we logged into a Google account, like a phone number, and text. So that seems to be, because the text, the parents seem to get right away, and they check that right away versus their emails that either they check it, once a week or once every whatever. So and then phone calls, they can't answer because either they're at work or wherever. So the texting through the Google app seems to be working for us.
Great. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, I think that's interesting. I've heard that too, that we used to, before the pandemic, we used to really think of texting as something that was very, well, informal, something you did socially with your friends, with maybe family members. But I hear more and more of stories about teachers and families connecting to teachers through text, just because they're so familiar with it and know how to navigate it. So and like you shared, that Google provides a way for another channel for texting that is like maybe not your phone number, is from what I understand. So that's great.
Yeah. And then we still do mail. We will mail out for especially those parents that we don't really hear back from them, with any of those 4 things that we do. We'll just end up mailing them the paperwork, or whatever we're trying to get across to them. We just put it in the mail.
Yeah. Great. And that is always there to use.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and I'm seeing in the chat, teachers creating YouTube channels and videos. That's a great idea. Yeah. And that is something that, a lot of people were used to navigating before the pandemic, and we found a different way to utilize that. That's really helpful and able to help us connect with families. So that's great. Okay, so I encourage you to keep on sharing in the Padlet. Again, hopefully you were able to open that, and you can see we have the different columns for different breakout sessions. And if you would like to add something, you just click on the bar that has the plus, and then you can add to that. You can add just text, or if there's a helpful link that you want to add, you can add that too. So again, we really want this to be a time where you can share your resources with others and also see what others are doing as well.
Thank you, Elin. I think that's a great reminder, not only in this small group, but others are still going to the Padlet. So they might look at what we did, see some of those ideas you share and want to share some of their own. Sometimes we assume that's not that great. This is how we did it, but that's not that great. But really just sharing some of even the smallest things can really help others, not only if they're encountering the same challenges, but also, it just makes you feel like you belong, like you're not alone in some of these struggles that you're having, when you can see, oh yeah, I'm not the only one struggling with that, or this is how they kind of try to overcome that challenge or that barrier. So we wanted to share some of the updates to the take-home kits, our take-home kits for preschool that we're still piloting. We were able to kind of create some, and we had the PL with the teachers, the professional learning with the teachers, but we'll deliver those as soon as their spring break is over, which is next week. But we want to talk about the themes. So the next themes we went into were balancing. So we created 2 one-pagers, one about balancing with your bodies, so things that you can do. And we know our little ones are, some of them are, you know, getting coordinated with motor skills and all of that. And it's just a fun way to think about balance. And then we did another one-pager with balancing with materials, because building with blocks and building and stacking things are what children are inclined to do. And so thinking about how to make that purposeful, thinking about the questions we might ask when children are engaged in those things. We got some great photos from that session, which already is past, but our take-home kit will have both of those activities in there. But we got some great ideas, creativity, using things outside to balance. Someone put a tape on their carpet and had kids pretending that that was, you know, a rope they had to balance on. So all of these ideas with balance was that theme. So the take-home kit will include just the one-pagers in Spanish and English. The materials to balance with, we encourage just to get things from the house, from their own home, their own spaces. So it says, I think, collect so many things, I think around 10, and then just exercise in balancing them. So those 2 first one-pagers around balancing were really about embodied and then objects in your home. So they didn't really need to come with materials. So that was really one great use of that is just the accessibility. And we know that materials is one of those things that we have to always think about. And then the other theme that we just got finished with is stability. So thinking about balance seemed like a great segue to stability and in structures. Like how is something stable? How do we, you know, think about something? We might call it strong. Kids might say that chair is strong, or the bed is really strong. But stability has to do with not only how it's built in engineering, but then how we can build it better or design. So we had 2 activities. The first one was creating a prism. So we encourage like using maybe a story or having kids think about their imagination, but it's all around building an actual prism just out of paper. So you don't need any adhesives. You need 2 square sheets and 4 rectangle sheets. We encouraged the use of cardstock. So if cardstock seems a little bit more, you know, firm, especially for little ones, if you fold these folds nice and tight, then it really won't come apart. But there's no tape or glue on this prism. So we try to think of it as a way to engage students not only in the geometry, just like we talked about in the last session, but really around what is stable and what makes things stable. Also thinking about if you build more than one, you could stack them, and talked about balance as well. So in that first one, there's a YouTube video that shows how to create a prism. And then there's we put in that take-home kit, we'll have all the cardstock in there for the family to engage together. The folds are pretty simple, but we imagine, depending on the thickness of the paper, that there will need to be like an adult or a caregiver that will help that with the child along with that. And then putting this together is much like a puzzle. So it takes some time the first time you put it together. I could literally just take this apart again and put it together again, because it's just these pieces. So having children engaged, depending on their age, is probably a way for them to like take it apart, put it together. And you see the one on the screen, we were thinking about how we can use that in play. Like, could we make it into a building? And could we talk about things that look like prisms that are around our environment? So that was one activity in the stability. And then the second part there is some colorful 3x5 cards. So we got 3x5 cards. We have about 20 in each kit. So 20 seems like a good number to build with. And you cut slits. So we have them without the slits given to children, but with the teachers, we had them engage in cutting a slit down the middle and then 2 on the sides, like almost cutting the card in thirds. You don't cut all the way through, you just cut about halfway. And it's a great way to interlock the cards. So the cards pretty much interlock. we are thinking about balance and stability is happening all the time because you have the structure leaning and you have to, oh, it's getting too heavy on this one. How can we balance it? So that balance idea is coming back, but also stability, you know, is it stable? Is it staying up straight? Is it holding its weight? The foundation starts being very important. So the foundation that a child builds and then building on top of that. So giving prompts like how high can we build it? You know, or what does this look like? Or how many cards did we use? Or, you know, just so many other questions that can be asked with really just engaging around building. There really isn't any way you could build it. It could be any way, but it turns out to be really something beautiful that looks like a sculpture almost and has all of these different dimensions that you can look through the top, you can look through the side, you can talk about what you see and the colors you see. So we had teachers engage with that just this last Friday. And in that kit that they'll have for stability, they'll have the one pager around the colorful card structures and then the prism buildings. And so that will go out next week, like I said before. And so we're hopeful of the ways that parents are getting to engage with these around the teachers virtually because those kits are going home, but also we're seeing that happen in the class in small groups with students being able to engage right in the class because they have those activities ready for them. And then teachers are being creative and doing other things around balance. And I'm sure they'll do other things around stability as well. Just keep on contributing to these themes and really around the mathematics and the science engineering that's happening in these playful ways. So we're going to share a little bit about just some literacy connections, but I wanted to tell you about one resource that I found. It's called the Internet Archive, and we put this, did we put this on the one pager? I think we put it on our.
No, I put a link to that in the Padlet.
In the Padlet, yes.
So the link to the Internet Archive is in the Padlet.
So this is a great resource. You can digitally check out a book. So you could actually, if you had kids on line video virtual, you could read it to them and it'll turn the page much like that. You can see how it says borrow, so you can borrow it. It's free to have an account. They have so many things on there. You can get lost in there, but I've just really looked at the books. And so when I'm looking for, they have mostly older children's book. This one is called The Shapes We See, but some of them are kind of current. So it just depends. I mean, if you're looking for really familiar stories like The Three Bears or something like that, you can go on here and find some of those books and be able to access them. I know YouTube has a lot of those videos that you probably have used, but I think it really means a lot to students when they hear their teacher read a book to them. And that's not always so easy with, you know, the camera and the angles and the glare. And this seems like a really great way for them to focus on the visual, but then hear your voice. And so I thought I'd share that resource with you in case you'd like to use that. And Elin will be sharing a few more resources that we have on the early math project site.
May I ask for that link for the Internet Archive for those books that you can add your voice to? Where you said it's on the Padlet, like where at on the Padlet am I finding that?
It's actually, it's towards the bottom, Mary. So if you go to our, the parent and home connection column, and all the way down at the bottom, it's, let's see. There's Internet Archive.
Okay. I didn't go down far enough.
I know it's probably, I think it's at the very end. I put those in before we flipped the plus sign. Oh, thanks, Aileen. Aileen just put the link.
I put archive. I couldn't remember. Internet Archive. Yeah.
And then, so again, and this is something that, you know, you could share this site with parents too. And if they wanted to access books from the Internet Archive, they could. And yes, and that would give them a lot of, or access to books that they may not have, because we know that, and a lot of you have shared that many times you start a session with parents with a book. So we wanted to share too the California Early Math Initiative or Early Math Project, their site, and they have a page devoted to children's literature. And if you go to that page and then click on the book, it'll tell you like what math concepts it connects to. And there's an activity page in English and Spanish with some good tips on some questions that you could ask while you're reading. So I looked at the site and I pulled out some books that related to spatial awareness, what we were talking about today. So there's Jack the Builder, Room on the Broom, Clean Up, 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 and Round. I forget what the title of. The one with the shapes is actually sort of an optical illusion, thinking about what they see. But that link is in our Padlet too. But I'll go ahead and put it in the chat as well. So again, just, you know, like I was sharing, starting a session with a book. Many families, you know, they engage in that story time. That's a great time for a way for families to connect, but that also can be a great way to enter into an activity around math and science. It may spur on some ideas or some questions, good questions. So that's a great way to connect with families as well as sharing books that they can relate to, or they may even have these at home already, but not know that they connect to math and science.
Yeah, and just to be clear, these are on the Early Math Project site. And then if you're looking for the one-pagers to the take-home kits, just email me and I can send you everything that you need around the themes and the one-pagers. Not everything is on our website yet because those are still kind of in a, we're kind of doing it as a project, like a pilot. And so we haven't necessarily let all of those out. The ones that are on our site are probably one-pagers from like our HandsONLINE webinar and things like that. But I've had people email me who wanted some of those resources. We're still sharing those. We just don't have them out on our public site yet.
I would love to get that in email. I don't know if I have your email, Eileen.
Okay, let me put that in the chat.
Okay. Like, do I email Elin and?
Yeah. And I can get that. I can work with Aileen and get that to you, Mary, also. Yeah, and I wanted to share too that the card structure activity that Aileen was sharing that we were trying with our preschool teachers. We're actually trying that with some infant and toddler teachers as well, but we're just making the card sizes bigger because we got feedback from them and they thought that it was an activity that they could share with families. Just the cards are going to be a little bit bigger. So
we're thinking like 5x7 or going even to a half sheet cardstock.
Cardstock, yeah.
So we're really experimenting. So we're happy when people share, because I think if we can share with each other what worked and what didn't work, we can adapt and continue to connect to the home. Even after, you know, we go back to the classes, we still want the home to be an important part of the learning.
Yeah, so hopefully you bookmark the Padlet, keep on adding to it, because we just want that to be a continuing resource for everybody.
It's kept the same one going. So ideas from our previous sessions are still collected there. So if there's something that you want to go back to and reference, we encourage you to do so. And if you have further ideas, even following today's session that you didn't get a chance to add, please do so. That's available, and it's that acts as a shared location for resources and ideas for our group. So thank you for engaging in those conversations. Just a couple more things to wrap up our time today together. And I actually want to turn it over to Michelle Garcia with West Ed for some West Ed updates. And so Michelle, are you with us? And I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Paul. Hi, everyone. My name is Michelle Garcia, and I am part of the West Ed evaluation team. In the next few weeks, you will receive an email from West Ed asking you to fill out the agency questionnaire for the CAEMI extension. For those of you continuing from last year, this questionnaire is similar, but a shortened version, an online version of the questionnaire we asked you to fill out this past summer. So we did listen to your feedback. I know a lot of you shared that the surveys were a bit long, so we apologize for that, and we made it shorter this time. The questionnaire will ask you about how your agency supported educators, families, and our children in the extension year. Also similar to last year, only one questionnaire per agency is required, so feel free to collaborate it with others in your agency. Any questions? Thank you, Paul.
Yes, thank you, Michelle. So be on the lookout for that. In addition, we also want to share that, as you know, we're intending our community of practice to continue to be strengthened and built around these three ideas. And the first being the domain, which is the area of shared interest that we share in early mathematics. Our community development, which is continuing to build our relationships through discussion, through activities, and through learning together. And then finally, also through our shared practices. And these are our body of knowledge, methods, our stories, and our tools developed. So we're really excited about how we see these three things interacting in this group. If you have suggestions or ideas for how we can continue to build in these three areas, the work of our initiative together, please do reach out. You can always send an email to your AIMS coach with an idea or a suggestion or a way that we can continue to grow and move forward together. There are a variety of resources available that you should be able to access at any point in time. On the AIMS website, as you see here, we're continuing to post the early math initiative briefs produced by West Ed, as well as some other initiatives in English and Spanish, or initiative resources in English and Spanish. And then also we're posting the community of practice videos. We're working very hard to try to record different segments that we do during this session. We're not always perfect at it, but we're doing our best to capture these moments. So that serves two purposes. One, if there's something that occurred during the community of practice that you missed, that you weren't able to get to watch or be a part of, maybe someone came to your door and you had to leave for a brief moment. These things happen. We're totally aware of that, which is why we're trying to record these things. So if you would like to go back and watch the video of our session, those are posted. You can see we have the first and the second. We should have the resources from today posted within the week. So the video of today's session, including the breakouts and the follow-up moving forward together, and our main session. And then we'll also have links to the resources that were shared today. So please do visit that site. The second reason that this is important is if there are colleagues of yours who were not able to attend today, or if there are other educators you work with and you'd like to share a brief snippet of something that happened today, you should feel free to share those as well. In addition, there are some other resources that we're posting on the website that are in English and Spanish, one-page activity guides for a variety of different hands-on activities that do not require hard-to-find materials, but they're all around easy to find everyday materials in the home and ideas for engaging in hands-on and meaningful mathematics learning across a variety of different ages and activities. So feel free to visit those. If you sign up at the AIMS Center website, you'll also receive updates when there are new resources added. You should also be aware of the Early Math Project website. It's earlymathca.org. Our good friends Carolyn and Lisa, Naomi, and others there are always posting new resources. There are many book reviews, so children's literature books that are linked to mathematics activities and vocabulary that can be talked about, ideas for interacting with young children on those, and they have those posted routinely. And in addition, in English and Spanish. And also coming soon is an early math app for families, educators, and community members, where a lot of the resources, hands-on activities that have been developed here will be posted on an app, mobile app that can be accessed from anywhere by educators, by parents, by anyone interested in early mathematics. And then finally, our final community practice session will be hosted in May on the 24th from 1 to 3:30. And for this session, we're excited to be able to integrate some opportunities for collaborative reflection, for looking back at the year and celebrating the things that have gone well, talking about the ways that we've learned together, the ways that we've collaborated and grown. And so there will be an opportunity for some final reflection for that. As you remember, in previous years, we've had everybody create a poster recognizing that time is limited and everyone has probably more than enough to do outside of these meetings. We're going to just fold in and integrate an opportunity for reflection, both in your coaching session with your AIMS coach, as well as in that final COP. So we're really expecting there to be no additional time outside of our scheduled meetings to be able to prepare that reflection. We are very interested, though, in hearing from everybody about what's been meaningful and what have we learned together, and where did we start and where have we grown to. So there will be opportunities for that at our final reflection during the COP, and also with your AIMS coach in your final coaching meetings that are coming up. So with that, I just want to say a big thank you. Matilda sends her greetings to everybody. She was not able to make it today. I was hoping for a Matilda moment here at the end, but she is got her hands full with some new tasks and responsibilities. So she was not able to join us today, but I want to thank you all for being here. Thank you to our AIMS team for collaboratively working together on some fantastic activities and ideas. Thank you all. Thank you, our West Ed partners, and everybody else who was able to join. Thank you so much for being here. We hope you have a wonderful rest of the day and a wonderful week. Thank you, everybody.